Hi, everybody. My name is Seb. I'm the automation specialist here at Keeley Travis Business Solutions. And what I wanted to do today was just talk a little bit about automation and how we've seen it in business, the common misconceptions around automation, and the benefits it can bring to a business. So if during this presentation you have any questions, just feel free to put it in the chat. I'll see at some point if I can get through and answer some of those later. So let's start the presentation. Software in business, automation for efficiency and quality of life. I know, what a title. But that's it in a nutshell, basically. I'm going to follow the structure here, which is I'm going to talk a little bit about software in business, how it's used. So just give you a bit of context to it. And then I'm going to talk about why some people choose to avoid automation. And then I'm going to move on to how automation software is used in business effectively. That's to say, to increase efficiency and quality of life. And then I'm going to give a few examples of how my business personally has used automation to those ends successfully. So delivering on some of those promises. And then I'm going to summarize. So software in business. It's a term which is bandied around a lot. Not everyone's sure what it means, but what I'm going to be talking about is RPA, robotic process automation. And this can be anything really in terms of the back office tasks of human workers being automated. So extracting data, filling in forms, moving files, you name it, anything which is a fairly rules-based process, which can be done by a computer, basically. There's three main types. You have your classic RPA, which does exactly what it says on the tin there, which I just described. But you also have your IT process bots who can prioritize action plans and send multiple alerts to different places. And then you have your cognitive bots, which can actually mimic a human being. So say you have a chat bot online, you're shopping for clothes, a little window comes up, hello. So that's basically exactly what that is. That's a cognitive bot, and it's mimicking a human being. It's not a human being, but it does the job, and it can think like one, or more or less reason more or less like it needs to be successful in that role. So automation used effectively. Well, it's used predominantly in the following areas. So transport and logistics. It's also used in manufacturing and supply chain. We find it in banking and finance to a large degree. Some of the most powerful computers that there are devoted to improving software in banking and finance and the technology available. But then more broadly, it's used in HR and data management. Like I said, customer service, chatbots, the little window pops up. So that sort of thing. And then you have your e-commerce. So anything e-commerce based can use automation a lot, just because it reduces the amount of people who have to be sitting on it, which is good. So why do people avoid automation then? I think in my experience and in my research, it comes down to three main points. So you have your human interaction points. So people basically wanting a human sitting in on something. They don't trust the process, so they want a human watching what it's doing. Then you have your fear of upheaval, so they don't want to disrupt their business by integrating something like that into their business. And then you have your return on investment, of course, which is a very crucial factor in all of this, and people questioning that maybe. So just let me dip a little bit further into some of these points. So the human interaction point, essentially, if you believe, as I do, that human judgment is king, then you'll absolutely understand why this is a valid point. So while humans may have a higher margin for error, they're also more versatile. If they make mistakes, they can fix them. But at the same time, they can adapt to their circumstances and to things coming at them from maybe different angles from what they're used to. Something comes a bit left field, they can sort it out. Whereas a lot of people think that a machine can't really do that, and a software isn't capable of that kind of reasoning and that kind of flexibility. So that is absolutely understandable as a point. You do need to have your human interaction points. And then secondly, you have your fear of upheaval. So your upheaval to the workplace. If you have a valuable member of staff who's worked in the company for many years, they understand the business inside and out, why would you want to replace that person? And that's it, the dreaded replacement. So automation putting certain jobs at risk, and people don't really want to go there, even if it might save them some money. So that's a very valid point, of course. I don't think it's necessary for you to replace people with automation, but we'll dip into that a bit later as well. The other point on that in the fear of upheaval is the possibility for a disruptive integration. So people don't want techies coming in, changing the way they're working. Maybe their business grinds to a halt because of all the work that's being done on their system, and they don't want to lose the momentum they've built up over the years just to implement that, which might benefit them in the long term. But if that risk for disruptive integration is too high for some people, it's a no-go, which is absolutely understandable. And then finally, yeah, your return on investment. And if people are apprehensive, it's usually because they think the cost of integration outweighs the benefits which automation can bring to their business, which is absolutely sound logic, if that is the case. So in order to invest in automation, they need to see that the save time and the save money is greater than the risk and the cost of that initial investment that they're putting down on that software. And I think a factor that contributes to this is the fact that a lot of things are unchecked. You have systems in place which generate negative money. Businesses have no real way of tracking that. And in the cases that they do, there's been no alternative up until now. So there's been no such thing as automation. Technology hasn't been capable of doing what it is now. So why would you put down in concrete terms exactly how much money you're losing year on year by keeping your system the same if there's no alternative? So that is one major factor. But again, a valid point. So if it's so terrible, if there's all these reasons to be worried, then why is automation actually a good idea? Well, I think what puts it in a nutshell for me is if you imagine a manual task, something that you do every day that you absolutely hate, tedious, boring, whatever. It can be scanning or printing, it can be managing your records of employees, it can be putting reminders in calendars constantly, manually coordinating single ticketed items across different departments. So routinely getting involved where you really feel like you shouldn't have to. Now, bottle that feeling. I want you to think about how would you feel now if I said you didn't have to do that anymore? If you woke up one day, you came to work, and you were just free of that task. Now, I think you probably feel a little bit like this guy. Yeah, yeah. You probably feel a little bit like a superhero. And that's exactly how I want you to feel. And that's exactly how I want your staff to feel as an automation specialist. So that's what it really comes down to, I think, that it brings quality of life to automate. If you imagine for a minute that whatever you were feeling just then, a typical employee might spend 10 to 25% of their time doing repetitive computer tasks, which could be similarly tedious, boring, or, downright unbearable. So imagine how much that may bring them down, even in the cases where an automation isn't appropriate for the whole role. I think that a typical rules-based process can be 70 to 80% automated, and therefore it's worth looking into at least how some of these processes can be streamlined. So what it's all about really is going from manual repetitive tasks to creative and strategic tasks, which the staff really want to be doing. Those things which require a human mind, require problem-solving skills in order to get done. And let the machine handle the boring things which take out of somebody, and take your energy levels down. And then, yeah, of course, the accountability. Having automated systems in place can allow you to see things which you may not have noticed otherwise in your business, because it's recording variables which previously went unchecked. So say you have an employee who's performing less than the others. Well, before you may not have noticed, but with automation, you can track exactly how much they're getting through, which may bring your attention to maybe gaps in training, which you hadn't noticed before. And in cracking down on those things and making sure that all the employees are supported exactly how they need to be, that will bring your employees much more peace of mind and actually allow your business to function much better. But also it allows you to distribute praise accordingly to where it needs to be. So say that you have an employee who's doing really well, having automated processes will allow you to see that and therefore give them the praise that they deserve. It makes sense. And that will keep them motivated in the long run. So yeah, gauging those unchecked variables gives you greater freedom in terms of where to distribute your resources to keep people happy, keep people motivated, and keep the ship afloat, basically. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about efficiency. That's the other side of this. And of course, if you increase the efficiency of the process, it will speed up your response time. It will lower the amount of money that you're wasting in terms of negative money. That's money which is being spent on employees to do tasks which can be automated for a fraction of the price. It also reduces the margin for error, because if you have a software which can automate a process, cross-check documents, route it for approval, then a machine doesn't lie. But more importantly, a machine isn't usually wrong, or if it is wrong, then it will flag that. So it will be obvious. Whereas if a person is wrong, they may think everything's fine. They may say to 3 other staff members, yeah, I've sorted it. And then it's only when it's too late that you figure out something's gone wrong. Okay, and then it streamlines the communication. So using ticketing systems, you can make sure that everyone's on the same page across departments. And also it organizes the order of operations using automated workflows. So that basically means that you have a set process for everything, and that in every case, people adhere to that process to make sure that, again, errors don't occur where they don't need to, and also that people are working at maximum efficiency. And then finally, you have your enhanced security and compliance. So the relevant staff members can access vital information quickly. You know, if you have somebody's HR records right there in a secure archive, then it becomes much easier to retrieve vital information on that person at the click of a button. So automation for efficiency and quality of life. The adoption of RPA. I wanted to go into a little bit about this. So according to Deloitte, 53% of respondents have already started their RPA journey, which is set to increase to over 72% this year, according to their global 2020 RPA survey. However, you know, since it's already past that, I can tell you that this is absolutely on track. We've seen this, and it's actually exceeded that point. And again, they say that by 2025, it will have achieved near universal adoption. And again, I can confirm that where we are now, we're definitely on track for a near universal adoption by 2025. And that brings me to reframing this return on investment. So you have these people adopting automation. It must bring back money. It can't be wasted. And I think that that's where you have to really look at what these companies are seeing in automation, the kind of returns that they get. Again, Deloitte, in their survey, payback was reported at less than 12 months, with an average of 20% of full-time equivalent capacity provided by robots. That's to say that they saw returns on their initial investment within 12 months on average, and that in their department, they could get it so that 20% of what a human might be doing, a robot could do it instead. And that 20% would be at a fraction of the price of what you would pay a human. So you can understand why this saves money in the long run. And if you think about all of the efficiency that it adds, then that's where even more money comes in. So according to Gartner, by 2024, organizations will lower operational costs by 30%, combining hyper-automation technologies with redesigned operational processes. It's a very long-winded way to say working smarter, not harder. Just using automation and changing your processes, tweaking them slightly so that you can get maximum efficiency will lower the operational cost by 30% by 2024. Okay, it's all very well, I've made a lot of promises here, a lot of statements based on statistics, but put your money where your mouth is. Where's the proof? I would say that we have achieved this, and when I say this, I mean not just automation, but automation done correctly. We've achieved it in 3 main areas. And I've got a great case study in which we've gone into a company and we've done it in all 3 areas at once. So I'm going to go over that quickly. Now, this was a logistics company, and they had 1 person working full-time on accounts payable. So all the invoices that came in, 1 person would have to process all of those. And they would have to cross-check the invoices with purchase orders and delivery notes. They'd have to flag and follow up any errors that they noticed, just that they noticed on paper, and then pass it on for approval if it was above a certain amount, which would then slow down the process. And then organize and store all of those documents into a filing cabinet, right? And if ever there was an audit, the amount of stress that that employee would have to face in order to do that audit by pulling all those files out and making sure everything was right, having all the figures to hand, it would have been, catastrophic, I think. I don't know how it was possible, but I think that, that is for a lot of people just the nature of the business and the nature of the job. You deal with the stress as it comes. But I feel that now we have automation, we have the perfect way around that stress to make things a lot more simple and straightforward. So what did we do? Well, we managed to automate the capture, indexing, and storage of scanned paper invoices and digital invoices sent in via email. We also got a fully automated cross-checking with purchase order and delivery notes. So the software would pick up any of the documents on email or anything that was scanned in on the machine. It would lift it into the archive automatically. So recognize it, lift it, index it, and then cross-check it with any relevant documentation to make sure that all of the documentation is correct. Then it can check for duplicates, errors, or discrepancies within that process automatically. And then it can route the invoices for approval and payment, which incorporates that human interaction that I was talking about earlier, making sure that, it's not given free rein, but that all a human being has to do in that process is check that it's done its job right, just see, well, it says everything's in order, and then click to approve and pay. That's it. So on top of those functions, it also exported directly into the ERP and accounting software of the company. And again, you can imagine how flawless the audit trail was after we integrated this, because all of those files full of documentation, they can get rid of those. It's all in a secure archive, and whenever they have an audit, they can get the information right there without having to pull anything out of where it's being hidden or stored or tucked away. And they have all the information they need to hand. Not only the relevant documentation, but when it was taken down, where it was taken down, by whom it was taken down, you name it. So they have all of that additional information, providing you with a joy after your financial year ends, instead of what could be a nightmare. And yes, incorporating this eliminated 85% of manual processing. And then on the vehicle check forms, what we did was we managed to digitize all of these documents. So your MOT certificate, your V5 document, tachograph calibration test, brake test, daily defect check, 6-week inspection check, all of which would have daily, monthly, or annual expiry dates, which would then have to be looked at by various staff. So drivers, technicians, and administrators would have to coordinate around these expiry dates to make sure that tests were booked in, inspections were carried out, and so was any relevant maintenance which needed to be done. And you can imagine that in itself is a whole ordeal, a nightmare of a process, but it was all based on a wall calendar. So all of this information, thousands and thousands of pounds at stake, keeping a whole fleet of vehicles running, the fate of that business resting on a wall calendar, just people checking a wall calendar to make sure that everything was right. Imagine if that had gone missing, it doesn't bear thinking about. So what did we do? Well, to combat this, we just consolidated and digitized those forms and those documents, like I said, which cut down the amount of forms they had to process by 20 per day. Beyond that, it was also iPad accessible, so the drivers and the technicians could see those forms on an iPad and fill them out as they went along, which turned, what might have been what might have been an hour-long process into a 15-minute process. So just, marginal gains in some cases, but over time, that could equate to a dramatic decrease in the negative money, or rather, you're just saving money, aren't you? And then all of the forms within that archive that iPad sent these forms over to were indexed, so they were all searchable via registration or driver, or other things like dates, for example. So any relevant information the staff could find with the click of a button, which is very, very, very useful. Then you have your automated email reminders for expiry dates to make sure that, whenever anything needed to be done, there was always a good amount of notice given so that anything could be booked in, anything went wrong, there would be buffer time, and it's all functioning automatically. And then finally, again, your full audit trail. Like I said, the staff can access that information. It's all searchable. So say that a lorry breaks down on the motorway and they need the MOT, they need other documents to put in an insurance claim. Well, it's right there. But previously, if that wall calendar had become smudged or someone hadn't put something on there when they meant to, then that could be, thousands of pounds down the drain that the business would have to handle. And then finally, you got your logistics, your HR, your staff records. So in logistics, you have a few additional records which you need to provide, including your eye tests. So we gave them the functionality to capture, index, and store all of those employee documents, searchable by name, like I say, and other criteria like start date, and an automated workflow to manage the records to make sure that all of that information was up to date. So like I say, yeah, reminders for eye tests, very important. And then your employee data would be manageable by permissions-based access. So only the relevant staff would have access to specific parts of the documentation. They wouldn't be able to see everything, and it's all fully GDPR compliant. And then finally, yeah, overall, we managed to reduce their paper usage by around 80% by employing these automation technologies. And, to avoid, like I said, that disruptive integration, what we did was provided them with a 90-day integration plan to basically make sure that the business was running in parallel with the system which we were implementing, so that eventually they could just switch over seamlessly to it without affecting the day-to-day. And that, I think, is very important. And I think it dispels some of those myths about, what it might look like to integrate some of these softwares. So the feedback that we got was positive. They said that the system has made such a change to the business, doing away with thousands of pages of documentation, freeing up valuable office space, and making the way we work much more streamlined. So we, Keely Travis, were brilliant in understanding how we work and how to implement the system to make us better. And that's what that particular company said about us. And I think it's a very important point as well to mention that all of that office space that was taken by filing cabinets now was free. So the storage in a lot of cases can actually be a bit of a draw on business as well, not only because of the logistics of it, but also, having to pay to store that amount of information for that amount of time, can be years and years worth of documentation backed up. That's something which we can get rid of by automating it and making it all cloud-based. So to summarize, I think there's 4 main points I just want to reinforce quickly. That I think automation done correctly, not just done, but done in the way that I've laid out, is there to elevate and not replace people. So it's there to make people's lives easier and make their efficiency greater. Yep. So that they can be happier. They have their accountability. They know what's expected of them. They have the support there to make sure that they have the tools necessary to do their jobs and that they're happy in that. But also they have the ability to change from doing very boring manual tasks for a lot of the time to doing some of more of those strategic and creative tasks, which I think that they really want to be doing. I think that we all really do at the end of the day. And then, of course, that greater efficiency, cutting those manual tasks and capitalizing on the hours saved will go a long way in terms of the return on investment as well. And then finally, just reframing that return on investment, like I said. So any business that's interested in automation, that likes the idea, I think you would need to just think for a moment about how some of those unchecked variables of your current process can compare to a process which is working at peak efficiency, and just thinking about that negative money which might be saved if you looked into it a little bit and just saw what it could offer to your business, basically. And if it's not a good fit after that, well, that's fine. It's not for everybody. Like I said, some of these concerns are absolutely valid. So if you do want to know more, please scan here. It's a QR code that will take you to our website. And at the bottom of that, if you're using mobile, should be a form so you can book a demo and we can have a bit more of a chat and see what it is exactly that maybe you'd like to do with automation in your business and what we're capable of doing for you, how much value can really be added. But if you're old school like me, then here's my number as well and my email so that you can reach out whenever, and I'll make sure to get a bit of a response there going, a bit of conversation going, and get you the answers that you need to progress. Okay. Thanks for listening. Take care.